Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education University, and I'm your host, Tim Bogans. We had a thrilling NOW conference last week, and I think we were able to put together a great day of learning for all the teachers that attended. So if you came into that, thank you for joining us. I hope it was worth your time. I hope it was worth your while. And I hope you have some inspiration and some good ideas for the upcoming school year. And speaking, unfortunately, of the upcoming school year, the end of the Summer Now conference always marks the time for me that we kind of quit thinking about summer and start focusing on the new school year. Now, for a lot of you, I know the start of the school year is not on your mind yet, and you want to keep it that way. In response, I would tell you two things. Number one, a lot of your teaching friends, especially in the South and in parts of the Midwest, are back in school already. Like, they are doing their PD days this week, maybe even having kids in their classroom this week or next. And number two, you will eventually want to listen to this episode. You don't have to do it today. If you need to keep your summer as your summer and not worry about the next school year yet, that's fine. I understand. But this episode will still be hanging around 3 weeks from now or a month from now, but you will want to listen to it. I'm going to be bringing Lindsey Moss on the show, and we have a lot to discuss in regard to the year that we're going to be facing. Now, the thing that kind of intrigues me, the idea that Lindsey first told me about when we were deciding on podcast topics, is about how she's going to try to keep tech out of her students' hands this fall, which I think is a really good idea. We'll see exactly where the conversation takes us, but the idea of stepping away from tech reminds me of a podcast idea, which we did that probably 3 years ago on doing a digital detox. That was with my friend Gina Stuckenholtz. She offered to get kids' smartphones out of their hands, and the benefits that she saw when she did that were nothing short of incredible. So if you want to explore that idea a little bit further after you're done listening here, we will link that podcast in the show notes. But I don't want to limit our conversation to just that idea. I think Lindsey has a lot more to talk about, so let me go ahead and bring her on now. Lindsey Moss is back on the show, joining me now. Lindsey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Tim?
I am great. Let's just start with this. You survived. You survived the last school year.
Barely, but yes, I'm here.
Okay, so you survived teaching in the pandemic and the drive-through art show that you put together that we talked about, and just all of the craziness of the past year, and now you've reached the summertime. So really, really, how are you, and how's summer going for you?
Good. It feels like it was a 1.5 year marathon, really, right?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
And I felt like I was doing just fine. And then I got done with some art of ed stuff, and I just fell off the grid for about a week. I was just reading, spending time with my kids, trying to recharge. I think we're tired in ways we haven't totally identified yet. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to keep cropping up. How about you?
Same. It was shepherding my own kids through the pandemic is not anything I ever want to do again.
Right.
And like you said, I felt like I was doing well, and then I had one particularly busy month, and I got through it, and then I felt like something had broken, to be honest. I'm just oh, something's wrong. I don't know what it is. Like you said, you can't identify or you can't put words to everything, but something's not right.
Yeah.
And so it's weird just trying to, I guess, work my way through that. But
I don't know how long we're going to feel like that. That's going to be interesting.
That's the other question.
If this is done, or if like 3 months from now they're, I don't know that what the long-term effects of having lived through this are going to be.
Nobody knows what that is. And I don't know, it's a curiosity. It's a worry, but I think the more we can talk about it and the more we can share our experiences, I think the better we're all going to be for that. So, and I guess, we've talked a little bit about this, but now we're going to do it on the microphone. But I know you started thinking about, I guess, changes for the next school year and like what's going to happen during the upcoming year. The big one that you were telling me about is just sort of stepping away from technology, like not having tech in the hands of your students. So I guess, can you just kind of walk me through your thinking here? Like what you want to do with that?
It is not something I ever thought I would say 18 months ago, right? I don't know. I feel like, not to be Pollyanna about it, but anytime something really terrible happens, there's always like an upside too, right? And so I'm not trying to say there's an upside to the pandemic at all. That's not what I'm saying. But for me, it feels like this is my, I don't know, 17th or 18th year teaching. I don't know. A long time. Anyway, and it feels like a weird chance to pause and say no to some things. Or kind of like regroup and do some things differently. Because after 1.5 years of not normal, I feel like we have this brief time period where we can kind of take the reins and change the direction we were steering, right? Mm-hmm. So pre-pandemic, I was doing kind of a lot of tech, not so much tech for art making, but tech for process documentation.
Right.
So my kids, we were part of a pilot in our district where they were trying to infuse more technology. And that was like, I feel like pre-pandemic, like the call, like more tech all the time. Any way you can get it in your classroom. And the Holy Grail seemed to kind of be tech for individualized instruction so that kids could have, sort of self-pacing and everything. Well, anyway, the way that was sort of manifesting itself in my room, we were using Seesaw, and I had the school district installed like a huge TV at the back of my room. And so we were monitoring the Seesaw feed, and it was really cool. Kids were taking process photos and then throwing it up on the TV so they could see throughout class the different processes that were going on at the different tables. And it was really kind of a cool collaborative atmosphere where kids were sharing. So then the pandemic hits, right? And so Seesaw became one of the platforms that my district was using for kids to consume, everything from home.
I was going to say, like,
spring.
Instruction and, like, all of that is done through Seesaw.
Yeah, well, people were still we were required to do live instruction, and so were their teachers. So there was Zooming and stuff. But then they were using Seesaw to post, work artifacts for all kinds of subjects. Okay. And then more. Because then, my own kids, I'm a mom. I have a about to be 6th grader, which is shocking. And then it's humbling to say. And then a 3rd grader.
I have an 8th grader and 6th grader this year, so I'm feeling old. I know where you're coming from here.
Yeah, it's like I'm traumatized that she's going to go to the middle school next year. But anyway, so like I was watching them in the spring, when we were under full lockdown. And so now all of a sudden there were math platforms and language arts platforms, and everything was gamified. And my kids, I felt like their skin looked weird from like the glow of the... Did this happen to your kids too?
Constantly. Yes and no. My wife and I were actually kind of concerned about too much tech.
That's where I'm at. Yeah.
And so what we did is we made a list for each subject that, our kids could do, like, as an alternative to their Zoom class or their tech lesson or whatever, where we just say, hey, if you feel like you're on the screen too much, just step away, like go out on the back deck and read this social studies book, or, do these math problem, or even like get off the screen and do a Sudoku. And that counted for math. And that was just fine.
So your district did that, or you provided that as a parent?
No, just as a parenting thing. Like our district did lots of good online instruction for our kids, but like you said, it gets to be too much. And so we felt like we needed to give our kids some alternatives and some other chance. So
that basically,
long way of me saying, I know where you're coming from. I know that, the tech can get overwhelming and it can be way too much for our kids.
Right. So like we were fully quarantined in the spring, but then last fall, we went back in person. And since I was teaching in person, my kids went back in person.
Yeah.
And we lost the art room. It became a quarantine room. I was on a cart, so I was pushing into each individual classroom. So I feel like walking through the halls, it's like all of a sudden, because of the pandemic, the tech immersion that I feel like was being pushed on us as educators, like the holy grail of like every kid with a device, every kid's got, it happened. And at first I feel like the kids were pretty engaged because tech is very engaging. But then
especially if you gamify everything.
Oh yeah. Then after a while, I think they started to like not enjoy it. Like it was too much screen time, and the novelty that is learning something through a tech platform wasn't so great anymore.
Yeah, it becomes a grind.
And so like there were actually times where I would come into a classroom with the cart and kids would be like, put away the Chromebooks, Moss is here. Because they were really excited for content that wasn't tech-based.
Yeah, or just even to work with their hands on something instead of just poking in a screen.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so, like, I am just really rethinking. Well, first of all, I don't know what the fall is going to look like. I don't know. I'm in Illinois, and we're fully reopened as of like 2 weeks ago, but I don't know if that's going to mean that I am on a cart or if they still need a quarantine room. Who knows what's going to happen? They keep talking about all these, variants of the virus. I don't know. But I'm really rethinking what I do in the fall. And I feel like just as a mom and an educator, if I can be the place in the curriculum where there's a digital detox, I am going to intentionally do that. And so that is not to say I'm not going to still use tech to present content. Like, I'll still use my, document camera so the kids in the back can see what I'm doing for a demo or whatever. And, we do some really cool stop motion projects that involve some tech. But like, other than that, I'm really looking, I think, this fall to get actual materials in my kids' hands for the maximum amount of time. I think they're going to come back to us with some social emotional deficits. I think there's going to be, at a certain level, a lot of these kids have been through trauma, really have.
Absolutely.
And I think that the best way to help them cope is not another 40 minutes on a computer. Yeah. So I'm not even going to have them bring their Chromebooks till Christmas.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So, do you think, or do you foresee that there might be some pushback, either from your district or from your parents? If they get word that, oh no, Ms. Moss won't let us use our Chromebooks, or there's no tech in the room. Yeah. Do you think there's going to be any kind of pushback against that?
That's interesting. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm going to give up tech forever. I'm just saying that for right now, I see a need for my kids, and what I think is best for them is this detox, like I said. I actually think we're going to see a weird pushback in all of ed, because I think for the last decade, there's been this emphasis on finding the money to put tech in everybody's hands. And I think you mentioned how you as a parent were concerned, and I think we're going to see a groundswell of that over the next couple of years. Just because you can do something, or you did because of the pandemic, doesn't mean that now we've seen it in practice that it's really what is best for kids.
I was just going to say, it doesn't mean it's best practices. Just because it worked then doesn't mean it's going
Absolutely.
To be.
And I suspect we're going to start hearing more and more from parents who are concerned about the tech consumption. And so I don't expect to have a lot of parent pushback this fall. And I think that as things hopefully normalize, maybe we'll get some normalized equilibrium with tech in my classroom too. But like I said, for now, no.
Yeah. Okay. So the next thing I'm thinking about, and I feel like this might be its own podcast, to
Oh,
be
boy.
honest. But
Okay.
do you think there's going to be a learning curve when kids show back up in the fall? I know you talked about the social, emotional learning deficit, but just with skills, with what they remember how to do, with working with their hands, like what do you think is going to happen there?
Okay, so the thing I'm super fascinated to see this fall is like, okay, so art teacher confessional. I'm real bad at kindergarten.
Yeah.
Kindergarten has always been a real challenge for me.
Welcome to the club.
I feel like
you're not the only one.
Well, yeah, I feel like everybody feels that way about kindergarten. We all kind of look at kindergarten like, holy moly. And for me, I can't teach kindergarten the way I teach anything else. It has to be like centered.
Oh, it's its own world.
Okay, but now imagine this, if you will, Tim. Imagine a kindergarten class where no one had preschool.
God,
because that's what every art teacher around the country is about to have a kindergarten group that didn't have preschool for a year and a half. So their fine motor is what? It's limited to whatever they were doing at home with their grown-ups.
Right.
And so I don't think we've ever seen a kindergarten like this. I feel like almost afraid, but I feel like also, we're going to rise to the challenge, but I'm interested to see on social media. I feel like there has to be some kind of like, groundswell of art teachers giving each other advice, because this is going to be a kindergarten year like no other. They not only the fine motor, but they've never done any type of organized class or school. Like usually you have the benefit of a large number of them having been in daycare or having been in preschool in some setting. No. None of them. So we have an incoming kindergarten class of, I think, 80 some kids. We're high also. Our numbers are going to be high this fall. And so, I'm really trying to wrap my head around what that's going to look like. A kindergarten group that's younger and lower in terms of skills than any I've ever seen before. And also maybe haven't had the benefit of, a lot of social interaction
being
with
around
anybody.
people or being in a class or knowing how to listen to a teacher.
Right.
Oh,
so it's, I think, going to be special.
It's going to be okay. So this is its own podcast. I feel like we need to talk about
kindergarten SOS. That's a totally separate podcast.
Oh man, yeah,
send help.
Giving me so much to think about. So I'll have to have you back on and. In the fall in September and to see how much of your hair you've pulled out dealing with kindergarten.
There you go.
I think that I don't know, gives me a lot to consider, a lot to think about. But we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. So Lindsey, thank you so much for chatting with me, and good luck with all of this fall.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Wow, my mind is still reeling from those last couple of ideas that Lindsey dropped on me there. But I think the biggest thing that she talked about, I think the biggest thing that we need to consider is the fact that our students are going to have very different needs this fall, whether that be social and emotional learning, whether we need to think about trauma-informed teaching. There are just so many things that are going to require parts of our attention. And like I said, toward the end there, Lindsey talked about kids coming in who don't have any experience in the classroom at all. And I think we need to explore that idea so much more. Lindsey talked about kindergarten, which, elementary teachers need to think about, they need to consider. But I'm also considering, the implications for intro to art students, at the high school level and kids in advanced classes, and how just missing so much time and missing that regular year of instruction permeates throughout our programs. There are a lot of consequences, both positive and negative, both seen and unforeseen. Like there's so much there that we don't know how it's going to work out. We don't know how to shape our instruction yet. And so we're going to be kind of feeling our way through this year with a lot of unknowns. And, I wish I had some answers, but right now, I think the best we can do is promise each other that we're going to think about and reflect on best practices. We're going to need to share with each other what's working. We're going to need to continue to explore these ideas throughout the year, because there are just so many ideas that are going to remain up in the air. And so the best I can tell you right now is we can just continue to work on this, continue to share, and continue to return to the topic throughout the fall. Art Ed Radio is produced by the Art of Education University with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be back next Tuesday with another episode.